Hi, this is Ivan here. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can generate complete and reusable KarateDSL test features from OpenAPI definitions using Visual Studio Code. So I'm starting here with an empty workspace. I've just downloaded the OpenAPI pet store sample, which is very convenient because we have the OpenAPI definition, but we also have a live version of this API deployed at this URL that we can use for our testing purposes. So first thing, from the marketplace, you install this extension, ZenWave KarateIDE, that we are going to use to generate code and to run our test features. You can also install the class path jar, or you can download it manually, and once you are downloaded, run this command from the command palette, KarateIDE configure class path. It will show you a small wizard, and you can configure it globally or just for this workspace. So now that we are all set, we can right-click over this OpenAPI definition in YAML format and choose Generate Karate Tests. This is a complete list of all the endpoints available for your API. You can select one or a few, all of them. You can even filter by any string. In this case, I'm going to generate just one feature for this endpoint, the app-pet feature. I'm going to choose a new folder. So here we are. Here we have our newly generated karate feature. I'm going to show you what it contains. It contains 4 different scenarios. Starting from the bottom, there is this validate scenario. This is a karate schema, reverse engineered from your OpenAPI definition. This is a placeholder for you to tighten up your validation, to implement here your business rules, to validate the responses for the general case. Later I will show you how you can create validations for specific cases. And the next scenario from the bottom is this operation. These are just the karate steps to call your endpoint. If your definition is, if your API definition is well done, you shouldn't need to edit this scenario at all. It has some paths, some headers, some request body, path params and query params will also be here if they are needed. And at the end, it will call the validate scenario. And this is not meant to be used directly, to be called directly. This is to be called with parameters from other KarateDSL scenarios and features. And this code here is to make how you call this reusable scenario as flexible as possible. So the first 2 scenarios that we have here, in this one, we have an inline payload with some body, some params, some headers. There is a status code field, which if it's present, it will be used to validate the status code of the response. And there is also this flag here, match response. You can use it to enable or disable the response validation with the karate schema. And the first one is equivalent to this one. It's a scenario outline with different rows and different YAML files, which if we control click, we can go inside. And these are equivalent to this inline payload. So the last thing we need to do is provide a value for this base URL. So I'm going to create a karate config JS standard configuration file, which will return our configuration object. So I'm going to copy the URL from the OpenAPI definition Let's see if I can copy. So here we are. So now we can start using this generated karate test. As you see here, this is the pre-printed version of the response of the request that we just made. You can also explore the full test log for the scenario, for the feature, or for the test suite, which in this case are equivalent because we just called one single scenario. You can also explore the request and response from this tree view. It's very convenient because you can explore the response, a small portion of your response, the headers that you just received, the request. This is the payload of the request that we just made. You can copy as curl. You can copy the value from here, or just in this output view. This is very convenient for navigating the logs while you are exploring your API manually. So this scenario here is meant for you to explore your API while you are doing you are preparing some tests. So you can edit the payload and hit run and see what are the different responses for different inputs. And once you are happy, you can copy this payload, and there is this functionality in the extension that you can paste it here on a scenario line on top of a row with this command, smart paste. There is a key binding for it, and it will prompt you for a new file. So I'm going to use this name, and it will create a new row for you, contents of the payload that we just copy and pasted. Sometimes Visual Studio doesn't recognize these new rows here, but you can always use this refresh button. So here we are now. We are all set. We can run this scenario outline with 3 scenarios. We can see that there is an error. You can see here the error message, which is the status code was 200, but it was expected 400. This is an stack trace. You see here the features that they failed with the lines, how they were called, and if we close this message here, you can also have an inline error here that you can mouse over and see the message and the stack trace. Well, the reason this failed is because we were trying to test for a 400 error, but we sent a valid payload. So it's just a matter of making some validation error in this payload, maybe just adding a string here, which is supposed to be a number, and we can rerun all the tests or navigate the code. There is also this button here that we can rerun the last execution. And here we have the logs for each of the requests for the old scenario or for the old suite. Because KarateIDE extension integrates with the standard testing view, you can navigate here in this testing sidebar. You can even filter by different tags of your files. For example, you can filter by operation ID, so it will show only the tests for a given operation ID. It uses these tags, which are standard tags, standard karate tags. So this is very nice to start testing your API with atomic calls. Atomic, I mean that they call a single endpoint at a time. But you can also use this extension to generate. I'm going to generate test for all the pet service. But you can also use this extension to generate complex business flows. Business flows that calls different endpoints, chained endpoints. So I'm going to leave this for the next videos, but I'm going to just show you how this could be done from the Visual Studio extension. If you choose, you select different features, for instance, add, get, update, and delete, and then you right-click. There is this button here which is generate Karate business flow test that will generate an almost complete skeleton for just business flow test in Karate. So I'm leaving this for the next videos. Stay with me, and if you are enjoying this extension, you can always go to the marketplace and give it some stars. So stay with me, and in the next videos I will show you how you can jumpstart in your business flow tests with Karate and Visual Studio Code.